appreciate you if you would. Now joined by Mike Casazza. Thank you for your time, Mike. 247 West Virginia. Did West Virginia University get it right today?
First question, which is superior, 24/7 sports or 365 sports? We'll have to figure this one out. We'll save that for another day.
Yeah.
Did they get it right? I would say they did not get it wrong. There's degrees of right. You're certainly not going to make enough people happy here to keep everybody quiet one way or the other. Perhaps especially when the individual in the middle of it all is Bob Huggins, who on this campus in this state is, gubernatorial. He could really run for office and win the big one here. So that's kind of like a Rushmore figure when it comes to the history of athletics at the school based on his playing career and now his coaching career. So, you're going to have people who are like, you absolutely can't touch this guy. And if you do touch him, it's too much for someone like him who's done as much as he has. And then you're going to have, the academic types of the university or people who are not as invested in athletics as maybe a layperson is. And they're just going to see the words and know that the impact it may and can have on the affected communities there, and think that it doesn't matter who this guy is and what he's done. What he said is painful and detrimental to the university, and he's got to go, or what they've done is not enough. I think that they probably landed as close to the happy medium as they can. I'm surprised there's not more games. I'm surprised it's as much money as it is. And I'm surprised that people are looking over his contract and especially, his golden parachute was severely altered. So his future is, I would say, uncertain right now, and that was not the case just 3 days ago.
Would you say that means he's kind of on a year-to-year review now?
That's absolutely what it is. He kind of was before. He had to inform his athletic director by May 1st of 1 year if he was going to coach not the following season, but the season after. So that's quite a runway. Quite a cushion. That's basically on May 1st. You're getting 2 more years if you think about it, because you're already going to get that next year coming up. So by May 1st of 2023, he had to commit to the 2024-2025 season. That never happened because there's an athletic director transition here, and they're doing a whole bunch of different things, and Bob Huggins isn't going anywhere, and he's going to be here next year. But now you have a guy who was under contract through the 26-27 season, who is now under contract through just the 2024 season. So that's a big, big change for somebody who, not only was he going to be the coach for 2 more years, but for 2 or 3 years beyond that, he was going to be in an emeritus position, which means ambassador, run around, do fundraise, and be the face of a cancer hospital here in Morgantown. By the looks of it, that stuff's out the window right now. It might come back in. We'll see. He can earn that back through this rehabilitation course they've plotted out, but he still has to do that. It's not there right now. And again, that's not the case 3 days ago.
Mike, I'm sure you've seen a lot of people pointing out, well, if he wasn't as winning of a coach as he was, or if he didn't have this recruiting class coming in or whatever, and that's understandable, but any sense of, ramifications roster-wise or incoming player-wise on if this is something that, makes guys go, or changes minds, anything along on that front, I suppose?
Yeah. So incumbent players have heard pretty harsh things from Bob Huggins.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not trying to equivocate or make light of what he said, but he is not known to be like the Queen's English when it comes to coaching and games. And there are people, frankly, in the university who have just been kind of embarrassed sometimes by the language they've heard from behind the bench. But that sometimes comes with the whistle and the clipboard too. What happened Monday is not part of the job description for sure, and it's not anything that's acceptable. But I think a lot of people who are not surprised by this have witnessed something like this before. Again, maybe not the words, maybe not the rhetoric specifically, but they've heard him say some things. I don't think it runs off anybody here. Transfer portal closes tomorrow. They have a roster of 13 players on scholarship, a couple of people who would have been in line to play this year if not for the transfers they brought in, who have really bumped them down the bench and made their life a little bit more difficult as far as getting minutes next year. They're not going anywhere now, and this isn't going to make them more likely to go anywhere. I'm sure that coaches could use it against them in negative recruiting, but they've been doing that to Bob Huggins for years at various different schools. I don't think that'd be anything new. And this is such a public thing right now that I don't know that anybody could say something that's beyond the headlines as far as like what it might inflict to the reputation of the university. So the bad part's already out there, and it's very bad. But what are you going to tell a college basketball player right now that is worse than what they've actually seen the last couple of days? They're hoping to change the talking points to give them more human and redemptive things to talk about, again, through this rehabilitation program they've plotted out.
Mike, only Bob Huggins knows what he's learned. It's his life that he is living. We've always really kind of had a soft spot for him, even though he's kind of got that intimidating look and stuff. But we've been in enough press conferences with him, seen enough about him. When will he be in front of the public again? When will that happen? Is there going to be that, or is this just going to be kind of a simmering and just kind of let this thing calm down or simmer for a little bit?
It's interesting. He was supposed to be doing, they call it the Mountaineer Athletic Club, their coach's caravan. That's like a rubber chicken fundraising circuit. They're supposed to have events Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. They pulled him out of the ones this week. They said he had a scheduling conflict, but the scheduling conflict was, we need you to do anything else but be on the stage. So he did, and he's out of the public eye right now. My understanding of talking to people who have come across him or know him, he's really down about this, and I'm sure that you expect to hear a lot of that stuff too. But very thoughtful person. I'm sure he's stung and embarrassed by this, and that those words that he put out there are probably true. I do not expect him to come out and do anything that is like a sit down, clear my name, like a 60 Minutes or an Oprah Winfrey thing. I don't think you'll see anything like that. This is the guy who. Guys, we're still waiting on the news conference celebrating his Hall of Fame induction. Like, we never had one here because he's not into that. And I don't think he's into, how can I fix this by some artificial, microwaved, quick healing process. Let me get out there and take some questions. Let me get out there and sit down with a community leader from an LGBTQ group. And I don't think that's him. I think he's going to do what's been prescribed. I think he'll be curious and authentic about it. And if not, they pretty much established zero tolerance. But I would suspect that the next time he's with media, it is going to be at a basketball function, which right now, I would imagine that they are supposed to make a trip overseas to Italy this year. Typically when they do that, it's every 4 years. So it's really not a routine. But typically when they do that, they'll have a press conference before they go and when they come back. So you're talking like maybe late July, mid-August. That would not surprise me at all. And in the meantime, he'll be doing what he's been asked to do and made to do behind the scenes quietly without cameras, but just doing it for his own personal comeback here.
Did you go to sleep either of the last two nights thinking that he would be gone?
Not once, but last night it was more toward the middle than I thought it was. Tuesday was a bad day for them. They had pride groups, they had ACLU groups, they had 3 or 4 different organizations that are mentioned in a press release today that they came out and said he needs to go, he needs to resign, he needs to not be back as a coach. Some said, if he is, we don't agree, but he needs to be in the community doing things. He has to work with these marginalized groups that he has spoken so poorly of here. And again, they spoke up, which I think is maybe expected, but also a little bit brave. And it comes with the reward, which is that the university mentioned them. So their outreach got the university's attention. They're being included in what happens now. I thought if they had more days like that, if it looked like that they were just going to stick their head in the sand and hope this blew over, I and others who were, again, under that umbrella, they really thought that it was going to be harder and harder for them to keep them. The sooner they fix this, the better. The longer it went on, I think the more you were going to see people getting dug in. There are people in significant organizations within the university infrastructure who said, if he comes back, I will step down, I will resign, I will quit. And there are people who said, if he's not back, I'm out of here too. So you had people on both sides of the fence with some influence, and they had to figure out how to get it back on the road and going in the right direction. It took some time, and they were able to keep it from going, I think, in a way that Bob Huggins didn't want it to go. But I don't think this is nearly as clean a slate or a whitewashing of the events as people maybe initially thought would happen, but it's also not a termination.
Ren Baker, welcome. He, of course, we've known him. He's at North Texas, and he's got connections with Mack Rhodes, the AD at Baylor. But Ren Baker had to face something pretty quickly, 5-6 months into his tenure as the AD at West Virginia. But this also probably came above him, too, right, at the presidential level with Gordon Gee?
Sure. This became the president's office. This became human relations. This became the diversity, equity, inclusion office. This became the legal apparatus. This became fundraising. Became a lot more than just Ren Baker. He's in charge of the room, and he's in the room when it comes to athletics. But this time, he was in the room with people who were in charge of the university, who were in charge of that wing of the university. So he was a spoke on a wheel, but a pretty important spoke here. And I think he was making sure that this went in a direction that he wanted, but also think that he made sure that his input was heard on stuff too. And, I suspect he was one of those people who said, suspension, understand, but let's also remember none of these players, none of these fans did this. So to what extent do you punish them for something that happened on a Monday in May at noon?
Mike, really good. Great segment with you today. Thanks for your time. We appreciate the insight from Morgantown and also covering West Virginia. We appreciate your time from 247 Sports. Really good. Very